Hello, so today we're going to look at functions. So what is a function? So our first question is, which of the following mappings are functions? So let's first understand what a function is. So a function is a mapping such that any value in the domain maps to a single value in the range. So here we have some examples of mapping. So we have domain, we have our domain and our range. So we need to determine if this is a function. So if we look at all the values in our domains, or all our x values, x1, x2, x3, and x4, and we look at where they are mapping to, and how many values they're mapping to, if any. So our first value, x1, maps to a single value, y1. Our second value, x2, maps to a single value, y1 as well. Let's skip over x3. x4 also maps to a single value, y3. Now the value x3, it maps to two distinct values, y2 and y3. Because this is the case, this mapping in part A is not a function. So even if just one value in the domain maps to two distinct values in the range, that mapping is not a function. Okay, so let's try the next one. So part B, again, we have our domain and our range. And let's see what's happening to each of the values in the domain. All right, x1 maps to a single value, y1. x2 maps to a single value, y1. x3 also maps to a single value, but y2, x4 maps to a single value, y1. Okay, so every value in the domain maps to a single value in the range, so yes, this is a function. All right. All right, let's look at the next example. So again, we have our domain, our range. Let's take a look at what's happening here. All right, so x1 maps to single value x2, y2, x2 maps to a single value y4, x3 maps to a single value y3, x4 maps to a single value y1. So each of the values in the domain maps to a single value, a distinct value in the range. So then yes, this is a function. Can't spell today. Okay, this is a function. Good. All right, so now let's look at the next question. Make it a little smaller. Okay, which tables of values represent, I think I spelled represent wrong. Let's typo there. Represent functions. So again, what is a function? A function is a mapping where every value in the domain maps to a single value in the range, or at most one value. It's probably a better way of saying it. Every value in the domain maps to at most one value in the range. So in this case, let's pick another color. Our first column, our x column, is the domain, and our y column is the range. So we need to look at all the values in the domain or in the first column and see what values they map to in the range or the second column. So 0 maps to 0, 1 to 1, 2 to 4, 3 to 9, -1 to 1, -2 to 4, and -3 to 9. So this is a function because there is no value in the domain that maps to two two distinct values in the range. So yes, a function. Okay. All right, let's make this a bit smaller so we can see everything. All right, second table. All right, so we have our domain, we'll just put a D above it, and our range, so our X values and our Y. So let's have a look. So, so 0 maps to 0, that's good. Any other zeros? So then we have 1 maps to 1. All right, but I notice here that our X value 1 also maps to -1. So this means X maps to two distinct values in the range. So already I know this is not a function, not a function. Now let's just for fun, look at the other values in the domain and see where they map to. So 4 maps to 2, and it looks like 4 maps to -2 as well. 9 maps to 3, but 9 also maps to -3. 16 maps to 4 and also maps to -4, 25 to 5, and 25 maps to -5. So this is definitely not a function. It looks like there are many X values that map to more than one distinct Y value in the range. All right, third one. Again, we have our domain, our X values, or the first column of our table, our range, or Y values, the second column in our table. And let's see where these X values are mapping to. So 1 maps to 1, 2 maps to 1/2, 3 maps to 1/3, 4 maps to 1/4, 5 maps over to 1/5. So each of the values in the domain on the first column maps to a distinct value, or only one value, sorry, at most one value in the range. So yes, a function. That's a nice way of stating a function. Why don't we write that down over here? So a function is a mapping where each value in the domain maps to at most one value in the range. All right. Okay. All right, so last set of questions. Okay, so which of the following graphs represent functions? So in this situation, we're going to use what's called the vertical line test. What the vertical line test tells us is that if we can draw a vertical line anywhere on the graph of the function, of whatever mapping we have, rather, and if that vertical line only intersects the mapping once, then we have a function. So let's try that. All right. So anywhere we draw a vertical line, that's not very vertical, that last one, a vertical line, it intersects the blue curve or the graph of our mapping one time. So yes, let's write that in. So yes, this is a function. Good. All right, let's look at the next curve or the next graph. So in this case, if you draw a vertical line here, notice that the vertical line intersects our graph in 2 points. So already we know this is not a function, so not a function. Okay. All right, so C. Again, we have this curve here. We're going to draw vertical lines. And it looks like, oh, again, that's not very vertical there, vertical line. So anywhere, so if we kept doing this, anywhere we draw a vertical line, it only intersects our graph, our blue curve once. So yes, or at most once. So yes, this is a function. And finally, part D, we have, again, a graph of some mapping. And if we draw a vertical line right there, we notice that it intersects our curve definitely more than one time. So this is not a function. So for this question, we use what is called a vertical line test. Vertical line test. Good, to determine if a given graph of a mapping represents a function. Good, so this brings us to the end of our session. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us a note at info@raismymarks.com or give us a call day or evening, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.